Welcome back to Your Health this morning, and this second part of Your Health on Morning Express, we are looking at medical malpractice, and this is after the recent mishap at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Now, the Kenyatta National Hospital's recent mishap, where a patient had an unintended surgery, is and continues to be an issue of public interest. This incident has brought to the forefront issues of medical malpractice and the measures put in place to safeguard patients from such errors, some which can even cost lives. The Medical Board, the Nursing Council and the Clinical Officers Council is scheduled to hold a joint preliminary inquiry into that particular incident tomorrow. All the parties involved in the incident have been summoned to appear before these regulators as they investigate the matter. We focus on the legal provisions and ramifications of medical malpractice on this second part of Your Health with Belinda Kouna, who is an advocate of the High Court in Kenya and a medical legal expert. And Belinda, I'll just start off this discussion by asking you, is this the first time that we are seeing complaints of medical malpractice against doctors, nurses and clinical officers?
No, this is not the first time we are seeing such complaints. Complaints against medical malpractice is a norm because sometimes people feel aggrieved in each and every area. Say, for example, if someone is mishandled by a nurse or a doctor and they are not happy with the outcome, then they can complain to the regulators. The regulators here are the Medical Board, if it's against a doctor or a hospital. Then there is the Nursing Council, if it's against a nurse, and the Clinical Officers Council, of course, if it's a clinical officer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there have been issues about that it's negligence or it's an error. When is a complaint now certified as negligence or not negligence?
When a complaint is lodged, an example I would give is with the Medical Board. A complainant comes in and fills a form, and they write a statement accompanying that complaint form saying, for example, I went to Kenyatta and this doctor did this procedure which I thought or I felt is not necessary. So once they look at it, the file is assigned to a medical doctor who is a specialist in that area to review it and then to see the points which negligence come in. So that is the procedure in lodging complaints. I believe it is similar in the Nursing Council and in the Clinical Officers Council as well.
Okay. And the public has raised some issues against or on the fact that the persons reviewing a complaint are also doctors, and that doctors always just protect their own when there's a complaint, and that the public should have a sitting in that in that committee or in the inquiry in the Medical Board, because the public always feels like the doctors come and gang against the public and protect their own. Is this the case, and what is the practice worldwide?
Protecting their own, I don't think so, because you see, it is a very technical area. If you put, for example, Belinda is a lawyer, in a committee to look at issues of technical medical jargon, I would not understand. I would need a doctor to explain. And I would need a doctor to review it before I look at it, so that I can only look at the legal aspects. What is malpractice? What is misconduct, for example? How did the doctor conduct themselves? And if it is an issue that is very technical, a gynecological problem, for example, or a surgery, a doctor who is senior to this one, who would sit in the board, would be better off looking at reviewing it preliminary, then presenting it to the board, which constitutes everybody else. A lawyer who usually sits in the board as well, so that they can give the legal angle of this. The other constitutions, for example, there's a committee called the PCC within the Medical Board. This PCC has a public
professional
conduct committee. Yes, it has a member of the public sitting there who usually gives now the public view. But that is the next step, when they realize that there was actually negligence and they have to look at it. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay.
But the argument would be that the public should be engaged from the word go, because who protects the public's interest at the very beginning of that inquiry?
The public are the ones who complain. This regulator oversees, of course, they safeguard issues of the public, and they also look into the conduct of the doctors and the other professionals. So when they are looking at this, it is the public who have given an outcry. The constitution of the board, yes, majorly doctors, but there is a lawyer also there who at least takes care of the public interest.
Yeah. So when somebody makes a complaint at the medical board against a doctor or an institution, or they've gone to any of the other regulators and they made a complaint, what are the likely outcomes when they lodge a complaint? Like now, tomorrow, the joint inquiry will be sitting. What are the likely outcomes from such a preliminary inquiry?
The outcome would be sometimes when they now find that there was negligence, right? That is what you're asking. Then they would either admonish the doctor, suspend the doctor. They would give corrective remedies. If it's a doctor nurse, they would now know who was negligent, and then apportion, either admonish them, suspend them, take them for training again, bring in issues of mediation between themselves and their families, which sometimes goes a long way to the healing if there was a problem. Yes.
Well, from this, and there's one of the articles that I read that the public always feels like, well, once there are corrective measures against the doctor or the medical profession, what is in there for the public or the person who's been offended? What legal recourse do they have?
When they go to mediation, sometimes they can agree on compensation, but that is outside the powers of the regulators, because compensation is an issue where sometimes the hospital may approach, or the medical practitioner can agree with the families. Sometimes they want an out-of-court settlement. However, if they are not satisfied with the outcome of the decisions of the boards, they are allowed to go to the court and file a case there, and they can get a legal remedy, which sometimes can get it to damages. They can be compensated.
Do this actually happen? Do we have examples of this that have actually happened?
Yes, there are many cases in court, very many, where families have been compensated. Because you see, sometimes the boards may not have power to give compensation in monetary terms. So they go to court and say the boards found this person guilty, rely on the documents or the rulings of the boards, and then now get damages from the court.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when people make the complaints at the board, at the courts, that is, what documents do they rely on? Because, for example, if in the inquiry tomorrow the doctors and the nurses are found to have been negligent, and these patients have expressed interest in going to court, what documents do they rely on? What witnesses do they rely on to make a case for them? And do they actually succeed in the time that they would expect that to happen?
Yes, when they go to court, it's just a usual court process where you say we appeared before the board or the boards, this was the outcome. We were satisfied or we were not satisfied with the outcome. Mostly when they go to court, they are not satisfied with the outcomes. So what they do, they rely on the report, that is the preliminary ruling of the board or the decision of the board, and they file their documents in the regular way. The regular way, I mean, whatever documents they want to rely on, being the medical reports, the admission documents, because you see, in a court of law, you have to prove your case in a balance of probability. So what you're putting to the judge is your case in totality. So what you had before the board, mostly they use that persuasively, because they help to leverage for the judge even to understand if the board sat, what did they decide? Then now take it up from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, in these issues, like Kenyatta has been a matter of public interest, what is the role of Parliament in this case?
Parliament come in like the public inquiries that they want to do. It's just to calm the public outcry, because in my view, the regulator is the best placed person to deal with this issue, because the regulator has powers to admonish. The Parliament will only address the issue and refer it back to the regulator to take action. because what Parliament does is inquiries into these matters, because sometimes the public are allowed to do direct petitions to Parliament. So when there is a matter of grave concern, they petition Parliament. Parliament summons even the regulator to explain what they want to do. So usually the regulator is better placed to handle it and then report to Parliament.
So are you saying the public inquiry that Parliament has called for is an exercise sort of in futility, because the regulators are also holding their own inquiry, so it will be a parallel inquiry? So are you saying the parliamentary process is an exercise that maybe should wait for the regulators, or it's an exercise in futility at the end of it?
Not an exercise in futility as such. It should wait for the regulators, in my opinion, because the regulators have legal mandate to look into this issue. And since they are sitting on it very soon, the outcomes would really guide the decision and the statement that Parliament would want to make to the public.
Okay.
Yes.
As we wind up, any closing comments, any closing remarks that you may have on this issue? Because, well, it's not the first time that the public has had complaints against Kenyatta National Hospital specifically, or any other facility, and Kenyans usually just feel like when they complain, they don't get they don't get the reaction or the remedy that they would wish for. And many people usually want to see the doctors off practice or the nurses not practicing. What is your final closing comments on this particular issue?
The issue of medical negligence is a very technical area where many things come into play. A professional doctor has many things they need to look at, especially when they are attending to a patient. When now it goes into negligence, it's for another professional to determine, because it is clear on what is negligence. So when they look at it, they can tell this is negligence, or this is total negligence, or this one they tried their best, because sometimes they are saving a life. They really do their best to save a life. And the public should not be concerned as that much. These errors sometimes happen, and the regulator is there too.
When you say these errors sometimes happen, for the public, it's, you know, it's a matter of life and death. They expect that everything is above board, and that some of these incidences should never actually happen. So you say
they do take a lot of precaution, in my opinion, for this not to happen. If it happens, it's very, very unfortunate, but it should not happen. And the regulator really looks into it. What are the circumstances surrounding this? What led to that? And you see, there are many players, there are many actors in this. So it takes a bigger team to look at it and get to the bottom of this, to know who was actually negligent.
So what what should we expect from tomorrow's joint board inquiry?
Telling you what you'd expect is preempting the outcomes. But they will look at everything, and it will, I assure you, that they will come up with a good decision.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Belinda, on just trying to shed some light on the issues of medical malpractice in the country and what to expect tomorrow, because the issue of the unintended surgery in Kenyatta has just been, has caused a lot of, let's say, public outcry, and it's a matter of public interest. So thank you very much for your time this morning. We have been discussing medical malpractice in the country and just the legal ramifications, the legal provisions that are there when you're aggrieved, when there's a medical complaint, or when you feel that there's an issue against a doctor or a nurse or a clinical officer or even a facility, and what steps to take in order to have your complaint listened to by the medical board, or even going to court in the event that you are not satisfied by the outcome of the regulators. And tomorrow we expect that it will be a big day where the joint inquiry, that is from the medical board, the clinical officers council, and the nursing council, will be sitting to hear the case at the Kenyatta National Hospital. And here at KTN News, we'll be following up that story for you. We will be there to give you what this joint inquiry will come up with, and what the impact will be after this joint inquiry. So we'll keep on top of that story, and we'll bring it alive. We'll bring it to you as and when it happens. So thank you very much, Belinda, for your time. Belinda is an advocate of the High Court. She is also a medical legal expert, and that's all that we had for you this morning on Your Health on Morning Express. And I hand you over back to Mike Gitonga. That's all from me, Dr. Masi Korir, and I wish you a very lovely day.
Thank you very much.